How is everybody doing tonight? Are you good? My name is Connor. I'm one of the young adult pastors here at our church. And if it's your first time here tonight, I know Casey welcomed you, gave you a gift card, and probably made you never want to come back. But no, we're grateful. Real quick, I'm not going to embarrass you like Casey did, but if it's your first time here tonight, would you just shoot up your hand real quick? Just want to say welcome. Thank you. Hey, if you are in the back standing against the wall, we will find some people to come help get you some seats. We don't need you standing all night. Speaking of seats, you can take your seats, and as you do, turn to your neighbor, give him a hug, a high five, a handshake, whatever you feel most comfortable with. But welcome. I'm excited for tonight. I believe that tonight is going to be a very incredible and life-giving conversation. And I just want to say up top, for all the new hands, I don't know where maybe you find yourself on the spectrum of faith, on your journey of faith. Maybe you've been a follower of Jesus and would consider yourself a person of faith for quite a while. Or maybe you're just kind of coming here for the first time and seeing if there's anything to this God thing. I would just love to invite you to sit back, relax. I believe that there is, in fact, a God of the universe who knows you and wants to get to know you. But regardless of where you find yourself on your journey, you're welcome in this community. And we are so grateful that you're here. We know that you could be almost anywhere in Denver right now. We live in an amazing city with a lot of amazing things to do on a Thursday night. But I think that you honoring God in your spiritual journey and maybe your search, I do believe that you're going to find something that you're looking for tonight. And I believe that thing, that person is Jesus. And so I'm excited to dive into a conversation. Over the past couple weeks, we have been in a conversation in a series that we've titled 9 to 5, where we have been talking about different things like being designed to work, and that work is a beautiful thing and a very deeply spiritual thing. We've talked about the eternal value of work and maybe the seasons where we don't feel like we're being recognized, seen, or maybe that God's given us a dream, but we're not walking in that yet. One of the things that we had always had planned from the beginning of this series is that we wanted to invite some amazing, incredible leaders, both in our church and in the business world, to come and share a little bit of their journey as we kind of talk through what it looks like to be a person of faith, navigating the corporate world and all different careers. And so I'm excited tonight to kind of dive in to that conversation. I don't want to steal any more time from our incredible guests. So young adults, would you help me welcome to the stage Jocelyn, John, and Hank. Welcome, guys. You can make yourself comfortable on our very awesome little leather couch here. We're going for a very nice aesthetic. You know, we're in a work series, got to look professional. Thank you guys, first and foremost, for taking time out of your busy schedules to come here and to have a conversation with us about work, career, faith, calling, all that good stuff. Thank you. Before we dive in, I want to give you guys an opportunity to just introduce yourself. So starting with you, Jocelyn, could you give us your name, your occupation, and then maybe what was that dream job that you always wanted as a little kid? Like for me, I thought I was going to be a wide receiver in the NFL. If I'm being honest, I still sometimes hold out hope. But what was like your dream job as a little kid?
Yeah, absolutely. Jocelyn, I'm really excited to be here. This is something, that I've teased my husband, quick, that he works here. He's a pastor here, Jordan McCaslin. I'm like, one day you'll let me up here to say something. But no, I am the vice president of sales. I run sales for a data center developer. When I was younger, a little bit unique, but my dream job is I really wanted to be an ambassador. That was my plan.
There you go. That's awesome.
Took a little detour, but that's what I was hoping for.
Very cool. Hank, how about yourself?
Yeah, I like to think of me as a serial entrepreneur. Started in the corporate world and then have just kind of started businesses. So I co-founded the Rayback Collective in Boulder and then in Proper City in Denver, and have since recently taken over a paddleboard company called Rocky Mountain Paddleboard, and then a sister business, Rocky Mountain Ski and Wake. So it seems to be every year there's something added to the mix. So kind of transition from hospitality into more, I guess it's still hospitality, but more outdoor recreation. And then similar to you, I wanted to also be a professional athlete. So I played tennis in college, but didn't quite have the skills to take the next level, but always either wanted to be a professional baseball player or a tennis player, but didn't happen.
Hey, you never know. The Yankees could still give you a call. John, how about yourself?
Go Braves.
Thanks, first of all, for having me. I appreciate you. My name is John Spears. I've been with Red Rocks for about 5 or 6 years, so love this place. Means a lot to me and my family. But I am a general manager of a large orthopedic company. So been with the same company for about 21 years. Zimmer Biomet, it's a Fortune 400 company on the exchange, and every 8 seconds in the world globally, somebody gets an implant from us. Total hip or total knee. So what we do is really impactful. I have about 100 sales reps amongst 4 states and operations team that support the states. So love what I do, love restoring mobility to patients.
That's awesome. Did you want to do that as a little kid?
No, I wanted to be Jerry Maguire or Conrad. I couldn't figure it out.
Okay.
So I diverted to something else altogether.
There you go. Well, again, thank you guys so much for giving us your evening. We genuinely appreciate it. I want to honor your time and respect everybody's time, so we're just going to dive right in to some of our questions. I think one of the first questions that is very, very relatable when it comes to navigating the season of your young adult, young professional life. I know we have a lot of college students, a lot of people who are out of college, sort of navigating that weird year or two where you're like, okay, I want to dive into my career, but I'm not exactly sure, and I'm working this other odd job. Many people feel like there's this pressure to have everything figured out early in their life. Looking back on the evolution of your career, how did your life, career, calling, whatever, evolve over the span of what you thought you wanted to do to where you're at today? And if you could give maybe a piece of advice to somebody who finds themselves in that same sort of season, what would you have to say about that?
Yeah, I can start. I was a psychology major in college, and I thought, I was going to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist forever. And I made it to an internship in a mental hospital and realized that was a horrible idea. I'm very goal-oriented, and I like results, and neither of those were very apparent. And so I pivoted a little bit more into IO Psych, or industrial organizational, which has a little bit more of a business aspect to it. And then from there, I just followed the opportunity from selling flooring to getting in tech probably 12, 13 years ago, and then following that through to where I am now. I could have never, ever guessed what that path, would be. And I guess my advice for you would be just don't worry about it right now. Get that first job and do what you can to really be somebody of character. Remember who you are as a believer and really outshine, because there just aren't a lot of young people doing that anymore or very well. And you work hard, you stand out, you really build that. I would say focus on your character in terms of asking your friends hard questions about your blind spots. Work on those, get into counseling, really develop who you are as a person, and just don't worry as much right now about the specific job. Just start one and you'll follow opportunity from there.
John, how about yourself?
Man, well, first of all, I acknowledge it's hard in your 20s trying to figure out things. There's a lot of things that going through your mind. A lot of you guys navigated COVID, went through a journey where it was different, it wasn't standard, and I think now you feel like you have to put all the pieces together at once. And I think in your 20s, you really need to identify who you are and who you are in your faith, and that's probably more important than anything. I'll tell you, the more that I interview a lot of people, and we hire people right out of school a ton every year, and the biggest thing is that holds people back, I think, is comparison. I might have a person that has a job here that's making this, or I want to jump in, and because it's medical device, I should make this much money. And I think look for the opportunity and take advantage of it. There's so many doors wide open. So many doors wide open, and your faith is key to that. Your faith is key to how you handle those things and how you walk through that door. So when you walk through that door, present yourself in a way, and things will fall in your favor. And there's a lot to do with that, but there's plans that you don't understand in your 20s, and it might change. But I think first of all, don't compare, and second of all, look at all the doors that are in front of you and make a good, solid decision behind your faith.
Thank you. Hank, you have anything to add to that?
To wrap it all up after that. Yeah. I mean, when I left college with a clear direction of no direction. And, I thought I had a finance degree, and I had all these big ambitions of, okay, what do I do with that? So what do you do when you can't do the career field that you were supposed to do? You go into teaching tennis. So that's what I did. So I taught tennis, and that actually led me to get a job in finance a couple months later, which then led to sales in the software company in the energy industry. And then after that brought me actually over to Europe. So I got to live in London, work on the energy markets there. And then that led me to get married and then move to Boulder 13 years ago. And then after that transitioned into this entrepreneur life that I have now embarked on the last 10 years. And not in a million years did I ever expect to kind of follow that journey or that path, or even think that I was going to move out of the South. And now after 3 kids, we're still here, and we're still investing in the community, investing in opportunities that we see here in Colorado. And so, my advice is, don't have it all figured out. You don't have it figured out. We still don't know what we want to do when we grow up. I'm still figuring that out, as which we kind of keep jumping around to different businesses. And I think the biggest piece is really know that each job and thing that you're doing and people that you're meeting is one step that's preparing you for what's next. And you're not always going to have that clear picture. You're not going to have that clear understanding of what it is. But just know that those skills and talents that you're learning and that you're applying now is going to carry forward into something that God's going to blow your mind with.
That's awesome. That's really good. John, you said something interesting. We're going to kind of maybe skip ahead and then go back. You said in this season of your life to walk through open doors, not compare, but then also really kind of hone in on your faith. I would love to ask all of you, as people in the corporate world, very successful, also followers of Jesus, what role do you feel like faith has played maybe in your approach to your career, to your business, and how have you found a way to integrate your faith in what you do in spaces that maybe people, unfortunately, would maybe say, well, that might be unspiritual, like church is spiritual, business is not. We know, because we talked about that is not the case. But how have you found your faith has influenced your business, your career, and how do you integrate that within your 9 to 5?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is that results matter, and I think that everybody that has influence and impact is going to be successful. And so bringing that together in my faith is that God's called me to do really good at my job. So when I wake up in the morning and my mission is to lead people in an effective way to get the results that are needed. And my job and my obligation to Red Rocks and to the church and to the kingdom is to come back and give to the church. And my way of doing that is by being successful, putting up results that matter, having people see me on stage at my sales meetings, and consistently year after year being someone that's looked at as having results so I can give back to the church. And then as I progressed in my career, there's people that look at me for advice in their personal career or their step of the way, and I come back to the basics and the principles. Hey, man, you should tithe. You should give 10% back to the church. Do you believe in what God's doing as your career? And God uses those times in the right places when people are at their hardest moments. And so there's obviously the certain things, like when people go through hard times on my team, maybe they lost a loved one or they've gone through a situation where I can insert myself. But I think my calling and the reason why I love the legacy team is I've got to wake up and be really good at my job every single day so I can do the things that God wants me to do in the church.
I love that. I think so often in the past, being a person of faith has almost been an excuse to not be excellent or even competitive or fight for greatness. But I love that perspective that God has called you to be great at what you do. And you actually honor God, and serve the church by striving to be the best in your career field. I think that's a message that a lot of young adults and young professionals need to hear, is that it is okay to strive to be excellent. God loves excellence. He actually, when they're building the temple, he says to find the best builders and the best craftsmen and the best artists. He didn't just say, go find the one that's listening to worship music to build the temple because we want this thing to stand. You know what I mean? Like, he said, find those that are excellent at what they do. God honors and loves when we strive for excellence in the careers and the callings that he's placed on our heart. How would one of you two answer that question?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's about being who you are and being a person of character and making yourself someone, that others want to be around. And I think sometimes, we try to over-Christianize it where, we need to go share our faith, but that can get really weird quickly and, isn't always the best idea. It's really about just shining through what you do and being open and having real conversations, caring about people going above and beyond, and them knowing that you're available for conversations, and they will come up in a really natural way, and you have a way to impact.
Yeah, Hank, as somebody who's like an entrepreneur who's starting things or maybe acquiring businesses, how do you find yourself integrating your faith into that, or what role does that play?
Yeah, I mean, specifically in our business, in the service industry, I think it has had a stigma over the years. There's a lot of folks that don't believe what we believe as Christians, and I think it's an opportunity. It's an amazing mission field, but it doesn't come with its ups and downs and issues and heartache and troubles and tribulations and uncomfortableness and being able to navigate waters, especially over the last 4 or 5 years. It is really difficult to have conversations, but I think, I'll spare you a lot of the details, but a lot of the ups and downs and difficulties we face, I mean, it just starts with showing up. It's kind of taking that step before you walk in the doors and praying over your business, praying over your employees, praying for the opportunity to have an impact on somebody. And it could be as simple as just meeting somebody where they are. It could be talking with somebody that doesn't look like you, doesn't talk like you, doesn't live like you, doesn't believe what you believe, but being able to have a conversation with them, listen to them, understand them, and maybe still speak truth into the life and know that truth might be discarded, might be put down, might be disagreed with. But I think if you can consistently show up into those opportunities when people know that you are a Christian and you're a person of faith, and what does that mean? What does that look like? That consistency, if you can have it and show up every day and treat people and love people well where they are and not judge, then it does speak volumes. And I think, it's a testament maybe to some of the people that are on my staff that are completely different than me, but yet we can still find a common thread. They can still understand where I am, and hopefully, all these years being with them and trying to sow those seeds, God, waters it and just grows it into something beautiful.
Hey, awesome. one more thing. That was really well said, by the way, because I was thinking about what you were saying. At the end of the day, human behavior for all of us is to only really care about ourselves. And every single day, people wake up in the workplace and they think, what does this do for me? And you might have been in scenarios where you're talking to people and you're like, man, this person never asked me about myself, never asked me about how my day was or how my weekend was. They're always a one-way conversation. Because at our core, in the world, in the workplace, people only really think about themselves until the day you find Jesus. And when you find Jesus, you start understanding, and the maturity as a Christian is, I can impact people in my workplace by caring about somebody outside myself. And when you do that, your influence and impact and your results will take you, like, it's not a monetary thing, because financial, God will take care of you. Like, you'll make money because you're successful and you care about others, but it's what you want to do in those times. Because I remember in my 20s, like, hey, if I made this amount, God, I'd be happy. Like, you don't have to worry about me forever. Like, give me this amount this year. I hit that. And then another time. And it's not about the money. It's about what you're doing and your influence and impact, and how you can make your influence and impact serve the kingdom.
That's awesome. I love that. I want to spend some time on this question, because I think that this is something that will really resonate with this room. We live in a day and age, in a culture where there's sort of been this rise, at least via social media, sort of this self-help, self-improvement, be your own boss kind of thing. And it kind of gives way to, we need to minimize our failures and highlight our successes. But I think practically everybody in this room would maybe know this without saying it, that all of us will experience failure and setback in our journey, not just of career, but of faith. Have there ever been any failures or setbacks that you all have experienced? And how has God used that to actually help you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I can take that one. So I wrote down 3 mistakes or 3 setbacks. That's the only ones I've had. So if you have more than that, I'm sorry. So the first one I want to say, when I worked as a sales rep for an energy company, big corporate company, before I transitioned into the entrepreneur life, we had a multi-million-dollar contract with a government agency in California, and went through this whole request for proposal RFP process. And 3 days before the proposal was due, the company downsized and got rid of the whole proposal department. So at that point, I was then responsible for taking over and having the accountability of getting everything through, and I missed an item. And the one thing I missed was buried like 30 pages deep in the RFP was, can you submit your schedule for the implementation of this new software via a flash drive and mail it to us, rather than emailing it? So we missed it. We sent everything off, thought everything was good, got a call back and said, hey, by law, we cannot accept your proposal. You missed this one thing. So we lost a multi-million-dollar proposal on a thumb drive. So, what I say is, like, especially as an entrepreneur, like, you're very busy. You're trying to find the next thing, and you miss the details. And so it was my job to be accountable, and I missed it. Now, did the company maybe let me down? Sure. So I could have blamed somebody, but ultimately it was my responsibility, and I lost it. And I lost it for myself. I lost it for the company. Thought I was going to get fired. I didn't, so it was great. But it was a huge black eye and kind of an embarrassment on that. So again, pay attention to details. They really do matter. And then kind of stepping into the entrepreneurial world, when we were trying to get Ray back open and we were trying to get Improper City open, it took about 2 years and 1 year to go through the city process, just for various planning issues and code issues, and our business model didn't quite fit within the city code. And so we had to spend 2 years lobbying city council. The mayor, had to raise money 3 or 4 different times, thought we were gonna, run out of money. And I say all that to say is, like, when you're told no, but you're passionate about something, get up and try, fight for it. I mean, we fought tooth and nail to go through this process. The city didn't have to create a new law for us, but they did, because we wouldn't go away. We didn't take no for an answer, and we kept pushing forward. So when you find something that you care about and you're passionate about, go for it. And then the third thing was, during COVID, sure, it had an impact on everybody. But for us, we were forced to shut down. At that point, I was questioning. I had a young child, and I was like, what are we doing? What did I do with my career? Why did I leave a fancy job? Why did I leave a job where I was comfortable and I step out in a leap of faith, create these businesses, and now I'm in debt? I've leveraged my house, I've leveraged my child, and now the rug has been pulled out from underneath me. And again, what I learned in that moment was, like, no business plan in the world is ever going to prepare you for something like that that's completely out of your control. But really, it's how you respond in those moments, and it's kind of the journey and the process and that ability to, like, lean into something that's difficult and push through. And I'm thankful that we got through that. I'm thankful that COVID's never going to happen again. But man, when those moments come up, and just be ready and know that, like, there's not going to be a smooth sail in your career. It is going to get difficult. It is going to get hard, and it's time to do hard things and lean in and trust God and know that he's got that provision for you. He's got you. He's got good plans. I mean, that song, without, like, cry no more in 25. What does that, Sean say?
Hey, we're actually ending the service with that song, so
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
cry right
but
down in
it's,
your seat.
Yeah, I mean, during those moments, like, it was scary. I mean, and I forgot where I was going, but just know that God's got a plan and that God is going to take care of you. I think it's Matthew 26. It's like, how much more valuable are you? And it could not be more true and real right now, even in my own personal life right now. Like, God's got a plan. God's got you. You're good.
That's awesome. Jocelyn, how about yourself? Do you have a story where failure or setback actually helped you kind of build something inside of you or get you to where you are today?
There are many, not three, many more than three. But there's one in particular that was definitely had a God-backed component that was very impactful for me. Earlier in my career, I got a phone call from our CFO, and we were driving. We had the baby and Jordan in the car, and basically said, we're letting you go. And we're a pretty high security type of field, and so typically, they get a couple security guys and walk you out of the building. Well, add injury to insult. They put security on the phone to fire me.
No way.
Oh yeah, no, it was quite the thing, and I.
Did they like speak up and say like you're being
No,
recorded or something, or like?
He was actually a friend of mine, and it was super weird and awkward. And he's like, I don't know why they made me be on that call. It was so weird. But in that moment, I thought my life was over. I mean, I had done nothing in my career but been very successful and moved very intentionally for a promotion or doing even better. And that was a real hit. More so than, yes, I was fired, but it was more than that. Like, I was my job in an unhealthy way, and it was looking back, it was the best thing that could have happened to me because it helped me reset. Like, what's really important? Why was I so wrapped up in my job? And I'd gotten to a point without realizing it, because it's never overnight. You just slowly give more and more of yourself to your job. But I had a permanent office in another state that I went to. Like, what? And I worked my butt off, and through that I was able, to really start, and lots of counseling, which I highly recommend. I still do. I love it. But to slowly switch that to where my family gets that spot that I'd given my job, and my job gets the spot that I had my family in, and slowly making those priorities right again was really important, and really set me in the right way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's never fun or sexy, but oftentimes all throughout Scripture, the setbacks are really like setups where you can look at almost any major person that God had used throughout Scripture. Their life seemed to be going in one direction, and then all of a sudden they experience this setback, this setup. Moses, flees to be a shepherd. Abraham, can't have a kid. There's all these things that God reveals himself or about like where our hearts have gotten off when we kind of experience those setbacks. And so as not fun as they might be, I think they're a part of life, they're a part of career, and that's oftentimes where God kind of speaks to us and teaches us some of our greatest lessons. John, do you have like an experience like that?
I've made plenty of mistakes and have some this week, but there's a book called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday that is really good if you guys want to read that. I had a few books in mind, but that just, there's no problem too great that you can't find the good in it. And there's no problem too great that you can't find Jesus in it if you really press. And it makes me think, like when you were talking about people in the Bible, it made me think of Joseph and the journey he had to go through with his brothers, and then standing in front of his brothers and having their eternity like in his hands. So my basic thing is, without going through some of my mistakes, is there's always a way to find the good in it, and there's a plan.
Oh, and sorry, one quick point
go
too
for
that
it.
I want to add is always remember a lot of the times, with something like that happened to me, it has nothing to do with you. Don't overly internalize it. That's a really important fact because, what I found out was it was really that they didn't want to pay me as much as I'd been making because I'd done better than, they planned. That was nothing against me. That was a business model decision. So always take things with a grain of salt and don't overly catastrophize things. Because in business, a lot of it really isn't personal.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think, John, like you were saying, the story of Joseph, I just think, man, truly, I know I just said, like, setbacks are oftentimes God's greatest setup. Mm-hmm. And I don't think Joseph could have been, the second greatest leader in the known world at that time if, unfortunately, he hadn't been betrayed, sold into slavery, lied about, in jail. Nobody wants that to be, in their biography of their life, but oftentimes that's where God does his greatest work. And so if you're in here, maybe you're confused, maybe you feel like you're facing resistance, or like we talked about, you're in that season of obscurity, God is working. Even when it doesn't look, even if it looks like your life is absolutely falling apart. Like Jocelyn was saying, it's not about you specifically. God is writing a greater story in the story of your life. And I think if we have faith, if we trust the plans that God has for us, we'll begin to see, maybe not in the moment, but maybe as we slowly are making it towards the other side, the goodness that God had for us as he was maybe walking us through the valley. John, you mentioned something in one of our previous questions where you said you talked to God and you were like, God, if I make this amount of money, I'll be good. You don't have to hear from me for a while. Ironically, one of the number one things I've been asked kind of out in the lobby, or people have sent me DMs as we're kind of navigating this series 9 to 5, is how do you balance ambition with contentment? Is it okay for a young adult, a young professional in this room to want to strive to be successful, strive to climb the corporate ladder, and let's just be honest, like strive to make as much money as possible? Is there a way to both want to be successful and ambitious while still being humble and content?
Yeah. I think, I went to a Christian university and I loved every minute of it. But it really woke me up to that the Christian community is called not to be like middle of the road or status quo or marginalized because they love Jesus and they're not ashamed of it. It actually taught me that if I'm going to be faith, I'm going to be bold and I'm going to do it the right way. And I think if we're going to represent anything, and I think God's looking at us to represent and lead to the front, from the front, and it is a fine line from having so much ambition and then doing nothing. And what is that middle line? And I think at different seasons, God's going to call you to different things. I think, but the number one priority is the identity you have in Jesus and your faith. He will bring that forward and take care of those other things. If you're controlling that and your ambition is because of the money or the status or the job title, that is going to get you tripped up. That's where it becomes an idol. Versus, I'm going to do these things for his kingdom. I'm going to grow because I want to be a better person, and I'm going to give back to the community that God has given me in front of me. So I think that's the hard part. It's different for everybody, and there's no cookie cutter way. And in your 20s, you need to go and be driven to find your way. You need to hustle. You don't need to sit back and say, God's just going to reward me. You've got to be ambitious about what you're going to do, and you got to study and you got to work hard. I think Courage is a big part of that. Asking questions and doing things that are out of your comfort zone is what we lack in a lot of times in our 20s. And if I would impress upon you, like, God wants you to be a difference maker. He wants you to be successful, but for his kingdom, not for the things I can get out of it.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's a guy who wrote a book who is way smarter than me, who talked about cultivating a rhythm of rest in your life. But one thing I've noticed, if I can make an observation about, I wish I could say my peers, but I'm 36, and I don't think anybody in this room is 36. And if you are, you can come to church on Sundays.
Jocelyn is.
But I think sometimes in the space of faith, we almost idolize rest and demonize hustle and work and ambition. And I think it's actually created a spiritual climate where, if I can be so bold to say, where laziness and lack of ambition is almost glorified when it's put a spiritual lens on it. I almost would say, I would encourage this generation to be more ambitious, to fight, to strive, to be great. I have a buddy who talks about one of the books I'm referencing, and he just said, if you are in your 20s, that book was not written for you. Your 20s was made to hustle, to grind, to ask God to reveal to you what is inside of you, so that you can produce and generate the most, that you can maximize your life for his kingdom. And so, I would love to hear your all's perspective on how do you, maybe Hank specifically as an entrepreneur, where you don't go to start a business to be unsuccessful, you don't acquire businesses to lose money. How do you balance ambition with humility and contentment?
Yeah, it's actually very difficult. I think coming from a sales background and maybe having the athlete perspective, wanting to win and succeed, it can be almost debilitating to the point where it becomes possessive and obsessive over the next deal or the next opportunity. Right now, as we're trying to grow the paddleboard business specifically, there are new opportunities growing. We're trying to grow this F&B part of the business. We're trying to grow to new locations, and it's exciting, it's fun, it's new, it's fresh. You're meeting new people, you're talking about the business, but I find myself getting up at 4 a.m. and I'm at the office and I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 4 o'clock, I gotta go pick up my kids from school. And it's this grind that even now I'm almost 40, and so I can't believe I'm saying that, but It comes fast, and I think I started early in my career, maybe similar, where it was just this grind, and I would skip meals, I wouldn't get up from my chair, I would just be staring at the computer, just grinding, and then I'd go home and, okay, I want to get this sort of, I want to take this class, I want to learn this skill, I want to do this, and then I find myself, I'm like, oh, I slept 4 hours, this is great. It's just not sustainable, and I think what you're going to find is, like, when you go through that daily grind, it's just gonna knock you down to the point where then you can't be successful and you can't be strong in what you're doing. And I think what's important, one of the parts of the first question I wrote down was, how do you be content and how do you not continue to strive? Have kids. have 3 of them, and it will slow you down real fast. But it half jokingly, but it does. It reset the mindset to work for something that's bigger than yourself. And it's working for not only him, but you're working to provide an opportunity and a future for your kids. But then at that point, if you continue to work for that thing or that dollar amount, great. At one point, your kids are going to go, thanks for that. However, I didn't know you. Like, kind of like what God would say, like, away from you, I didn't know you. So it starts with that relationship where it's like you've got to balance that ambition of like wanting to strive and wanting to do that. But at the same time, as a father, they need my presence. They need me there. My wife needs to see me. She needs to hear me. She needs to be comforted. She needs to be heard. She doesn't need to be competing with something else. Even though I'm providing, God will provide. And he's provided us with the skill and the necessary opportunities to take care of our family, and he will. But don't miss what's right in front of you. For me now with 3 little kids, 2, 4, and 6.
That's awesome. Jocelyn, you mentioned that you are very goal-oriented and driven. How have you balanced managing that drive and that ambition with that contentment and that humility that God calls us to?
Yeah, I think it took me a while to learn that. I'm naturally more of an ambitious person and typically not content with where things are. And I think you have more time to do that in your 20s. I love what you said about kids. That is, you should be making that a very big priority. But yeah, it will vary by season, what that looks like. But if you can generally say it's consuming your life, you should unpack that, because that there's something there driving you that maybe isn't the best motivator, that you're sacrificing things that are very important to do that, and maybe you're not even aware of it. So that's another area where I would do that gut check periodically and have friends give you that gut check of, hey, you've left us all high and dry. So yeah, that's probably what I'd say. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. We're going to do one more question and then go into a quick round of some rapid fire. Looking back on all of your accumulated experience thus far in your life, if you had a piece of advice, maybe surrounding money and finances, maybe surrounding career or drive and ambition, if there was a piece of advice that you could give to this room, what is something that you would say? What's maybe something you would tell your younger self as you were maybe entering into the workforce or managing finances or looking to start businesses or whatever? Just from your field of expertise, what's something that you could leave us with?
Relationships matter more than resumes.
That's good. Would you like to elaborate a little bit on that? That's awesome.
Yeah, I think every opportunity I was ever given was who I knew. That's not what I knew. And so it was putting yourself in the right opportunities and the right positions. Sure, that takes a little bit of skill in terms of, like, you can't be a dud. Like, you've got to have some sort of talent or something there to draw people's attention. But then it's the consistency and the work ethic behind what you're doing and showing up when you don't want to, and showing up when it's hard, showing up when it's difficult. And I think in those moments, if you put yourself in the right moments, in the right opportunities, in front of the right people, you will be seen, you will be given an opportunity, and then at that point, it's yours to walk through the door and take it. But I mean, you could build the biggest resume, but if you can't talk to people, you can't treat people well, you can't manage, learn how to manage people, learn how to manage difficult conversations. That all came from those relationships and learning from people and learning from mentors. I know that was some of the other questions we had, but get a mentor, learn. You've got plenty of people that have gone ahead of you. We've all had mentors. We've all made mistakes. We heard it so many times when we were your age, when it's like, don't make those mistakes, like, learn from me. But it's true. Listen, it'll save you a lot of time, effort, money. Listen to people who've made mistakes and gone before you, and learn and let them navigate those waters ahead of you. And it starts with relationships.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. I gotta piggyback. That's something that I thought about today as well. But the first thing I think your superpower that I would I tell my kids and I would tell you guys is your superpower every morning has got to be gratitude. Gratitude from just knowing Him, gratitude from your friends, gratitude for this church, gratitude for your parents, whatever. You got to wake up in the world that we live in and what you've gone through with COVID and what you guys have navigated. You got to wake up with gratitude. It is your superpower. And if you do that, you'll find your days start stacking positivity. And then when you do have some hard things, you'll be able to handle them because your base is gratitude, and the things of God and the things that He's given you will be very, very prevalent to you. But I thought about this today, and to your point, mentorship. There's two things I think that are very important in your career that you need to understand. You need to have an ambassador, and you need to have a mentor. An ambassador is somebody in your job or your field that's going to knock down barriers for you. Maybe they'll give you a special project. Maybe they'll give you a territory. Maybe they'll speak some career advice in you, and you got to take that. That's where that emotional intelligence or that EQ you're talking about, being able to talk to people and build relationships in the workplace. So an ambassador can do things for you, and you got to navigate and find that. And then you got to find mentors. Mentors have to be aligned with your faith, though. And that's the difference. An ambassador is somebody that's going to help you at work. A mentor is going to help you with your faith. Like I was worshiping when we started, and Jake and Anna here are two people that I look up to a ton. They're younger than me, but they were a mentor to my 19-year-old because my 19-year-old was in the Red Rocks worship program and did worship with him. And Jade we actually call Jake here Jesus Bieber because at home we call him, because he's so good at what he does and he's so gifted and talented. But that's a mentor. Somebody in your church, they have to be aligned with your faith, and your ambassador will help you in the workplace find that. And that's what this church is all about. That's what you have here. Small groups is a big part of that. Building relationships, you have them amongst your room. But finding a mentor is huge. And you have them, you just haven't asked the questions. They're right around you. But that's the biggest advice I'd have is gratitude is your superpower, and find your mentor at church.
I love that. That's awesome. Can we make a little noise for that? I'm like trying to take mental notes up here. That's amazing. Jocelyn, how about yourself?
What would I do in my 20s? A couple things. I think around money, because you'd mentioned that. Set up really good habits now around that. Really, really focus on your tithe. Focus on the things that are really important in that area. Find a financial advisor or somebody that you know that is really good with money. It's really important to do that now versus wait till you have it and then you don't know what to do with it. That's really key. And maybe that's not in your family, maybe that's a family friend, but that's a really big deal. He touched on it, they both did, but relationships are everything. I started networking before I had my first job, and it's not that hard. I just practically, so you can think about this later, but I just started meeting with anybody I knew or parents, friends who worked that had a career. And I would just get coffee and ask them about what they did and how they got there, and then said, hey, do you know a couple other people you think would be interesting for me to talk to? And I would, meet with those people. And I literally had a massive spreadsheet. And then I took that into my career and then did the same thing with all of the people I met in that industry. And that network becomes more important than any individual job you will ever have. And I have a little bit of a unique experience with mentorship. I've never had, like a one or two mentors that, I've just had for my career. For me, how it's worked out, and I don't know if it's because it's, very male dominated, and it's just a little bit different. But that network of people, depending on what's going on or where, I'm struggling or I'm thinking about something, I'll call, maybe one of 20 or 30 different people, to get their thoughts on that issue. I just, for me, being remote, it just never quite really worked out for me to have a long-standing mentorship. But yeah, the relational side, working on your finances, working on your character, working on figuring out who you are and what you're going to present is really important in your 20s. And yeah, those are the things that I would focus on.
That's awesome. Okay, really quick, a few rapid fire questions, and then we'll close it out here. Success often comes with sacrifice. What's one thing you had to let go of or change in order to grow into the person you are today? 30 seconds or less.
Personal leisure.
Leisha, okay.
It has to be much more scheduled, scripted, and cleared by multiple parties in order to do those things. Cleared by the boss, let's be clear.
I think you just got to say no more than you say yes. You got to be thoughtful of what you say yes to. And so it's not, there's not a lot of rounds of golf for 5 hours on the weekend in your 20s and 30s. I mean, there's a lot of conflict in that because your goal is to be successful and to do your job.
Yeah, I think for me, I think it was letting go of how much I gave work. And it was ironic, I think, once I got my priorities straight, it set me up to really be the leader that I've become, because your work-life balance, you're more calm, you're able to kind of think through things, and I don't feel so urgent or burdened by that. So I think that was one for me.
How important is a feeling of fulfillment in your work, and specifically maybe in the beginnings of your career? Finding that feeling of fulfillment, man, this is what God created me to do. How important is that, especially in this season of life where maybe you're stepping into that career field for the very first time?
Maybe unpopular opinion, but I don't think that's that important. I think your fulfillment should come from your relationship with the Lord. It should come with your family. It should come with your community. And don't make your job your fulfillment, because fulfillment in your job, 1 week you're working on a project and it goes awesome and you feel incredibly fulfilled. And then the next week you get a new employee that's working with you and you hate your life and you don't feel fulfilled. So, I think you got to look at things a little bit more pragmatically.
I would say it's fleeting. I think passion's great, but honestly, the consistency has a greater impact. There'll be days where you don't want to show up and you don't feel that fulfillment's gone and that tank is empty. But again, I think, like what you said, faith, family, and health, those become bigger priorities.
Yeah, I think the currency is tough, right? The currency of how much I work and what I do. And your job's going to let you down. It's going to hurt. It's going to be powerful, and it's not going to give back. So you've got to put it in its place, and a lot of times that's hard to do. But I couldn't have said it better than what you said.
Okay, final question. I know you said you had a couple books and stuff like that you'd want to bring up. In this season of life, as people are graduating school, diving into the workforce for maybe the first time, or maybe even thinking of a career shift, career change, was there any book, podcast, anything like that that just really helped form you, shape you, or give you some insight that you would maybe recommend to our community?
The first one I would suggest is Grit by Angela Duckworth. It's a book. It's based off outliers, but she studied successful people, and it wasn't the smartest. It wasn't the most talented, the people that went to Stanford, the people in the Navy SEALs, the brightest of the bright. It was the people that were dedicated day after day to the goals that they had and never wavered from that commitment. So Grit by Angela Duckworth. Obviously Sean's book, right?
Absolutely. We get a kickback.
Sean's
No,
got
I'm kidding.
2 books. No, one on the way. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
His book is really good because from an anxiety standpoint, I have it at 44 years old. I have it with my kids. I have it with work. That book is so timely, so prevalent. So read Sean's book. Craig Rochelle's Leadership Podcast every Thursday, the first Thursday of the month. That's a great podcast. You should listen to that. Talk about that with your coworkers. He really does a good job of weaving in faith, so it's a safe space for you to read that book. And then Courage is Calling by Ryan Holiday. Very quick and easy read. That is something I give to my kids, and they're reading through. So I could do a few more. Sean just gave me a book from Craig Rochelle, which is really good. So yeah, I don't want to take all the books.
Yeah, write those down.
I mean, I think
Yeah,
what he said is great. Well, and Craig just had Simon Sinek on.
Simon
who-
Sinek, yeah, that was a great podcast.
Yeah, he's a
this
great
month.
author.
Yeah.
But there's not one that stands out to me. I've read
Okay.
a lot of books, but
Hank, anything?
Yeah, you said a lot of what I was going to say. So I was
Jordan
gonna
has
say-
a coloring book.
Yeah. Highlights magazine are great. My kids get them. The Slide Edge for me has been a big impact. I think it can translate, from faith to business to relationships. It's just those daily activities and the daily choice of waking up and committing yourself to a craft, committing yourself to the Word of God, committing yourself to a relationship, even when you don't feel like it. And so it's those little steps over time that are hugely impactful in your career, in your life, in relationships. And none of us wake up. When we were running this morning, I was thinking about this, but if you're 1 degree off, in a couple steps, not a big deal. Over a lifetime and years, and if you're 1 degree off, and you're taking those little steps, and sure enough, you end off way off base. Like, how did I get here? How did I make these sort of decisions? Like, it didn't feel like it was one decision, but it was many decisions. And so the Slide Edge, every day, waking up, having that consistent attitude.
Awesome. Will you guys help me in thanking our panel tonight? John, Hank, Jocelyn.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Well, I hope that you guys took away as much as I did. I'm trying to make little mental notes and timestamps in my head so that I can go back and rewatch this. Our heart for this entire series, but specifically tonight, was to show you that there is a call on your life, a purpose for your life that God wants you to pursue and He wants you to be great at. That you were designed to work because, as we saw, God was a God. One of the first things He showed us was that He was a God that worked, that He created, and that it was a very spiritual thing. So maybe, I don't know where you're at in the room tonight. Maybe you're in here and you're just like, man, I'm new to this faith space, and just seeing a model of what it looks like to be both successful in my career and a person of faith, that was inspiring to me. Our hope and our prayer is that you would be encouraged and inspired to step into everything that God has for you while representing everything that God is to every single person you come into contact with. And so would you do me a favor and stand? We're going to pray and go into a moment of worship and actually sing Hank's favorite song, Good Plans. Hank's actually going to come back up and lead it for us. No. Jesus, we love you. And man, we are grateful that you have called all of us individually and uniquely to make a difference, not just in this building. Church doesn't just take place when we come together and gather, but we are, as John said, ambassadors to our world, to our workplace, to the different fields that you have called us. And so, God, I pray that tonight you would speak to us, that you would inspire us to be both great at what we've decided to put our hands to do, and then also great as representatives of who you are. And God, if there's anybody in this room tonight that has never experienced your love and your kindness, I know that this might be a weird thing to kind of ask in a conversation about jobs or career, but I believe that God uses any medium to speak to the longing of the human soul. Ecclesiastes says that God has placed eternity in our hearts, that we all have this design, this wiring, this longing for more out of life. Every single one of us knows that we were not designed or created to just live life and die with no impact. That feels wrong. God has wired us to have a relationship with Him. So maybe you're in this room tonight and you never thought in a million years a conversation about career and calling would lead you to a place of having an encounter with God. But I believe God is so good that that could actually happen. If you're in this room tonight and you've never met God, you've never had a relationship with Jesus, but maybe there was something that was said throughout this conversation where you felt like God made a connection with you for the very first time, and you want to respond to that. If you're in this room, would you just slip up your hand real quick? You don't have to hold it up for a super long time, but if you're in this room and you say, Connor, you know what? I came in here searching for something, and I honestly believe this Jesus, this God that you guys talked about and were referencing, I believe that He's reaching out to me, and He actually wants to have a relationship with me and get to know me. If you're in that room real quick, or if you're in that place and you're in this room, could you just shoot up your hand really quick? I want to pray for you and invite you into, yes, I see hands going up all over the place. Listen, that feeling that you're feeling, it's not fake, it's not hype. We don't even have the music turned up really loud. That is the God of the universe saying that I see you at the Lakewood campus in Denver, Colorado. I know your story, and I want to have a relationship with you. If you're in this room and you raised your hand, I want to invite you to say a simple prayer. The Bible said it's not a prayer that saves us. It says that salvation is a recognition of our heart and a confession of our mouth of who God is. And if you raised your hand, you're recognizing that God is making contact with your heart. And the confession is simply this. If you raised your hand, as a matter of fact, if you're in this room tonight and you feel comfortable with this, would all of us just repeat this prayer? Jesus, I give you my life. I give you my life. All that I have for all that you are, I give you my life. If you prayed that prayer for the very first time, I believe that right now God is making His home inside of you. The Bible says that any mistakes that you have ever made in your past are wiped away, that God holds our sin against us no more, that He forgets them, and they are as far as the east is from the west, and that right now you are a new creation made new in Jesus Christ. Would you please give a round of applause for every single person who made a decision to follow Jesus tonight. Jesus, we love you. We are grateful for you. You are our champion and you are our King. And it is our honor in this moment right now to celebrate the decisions made by worshiping you. Jesus, we give you all of us tonight. It's in your name we pray. Amen and amen. Why? Let's worship together.